Sea cod!
Hey guys, today we're doing an Alaska saltwater fishing catch and cook video. So enough with the chit chat, let's get the skiff in the water and head out. We're out here looking for some fresh fish today. Not super particular about what we catch. We'd like it to be a halibut or a Pacific cod. Those are kind of our two main species that we can catch this time of year. Two main species of bottom fish. Either one is delicious. It's a little early in the year for halibut, but they could still be around. Generally speaking, halibut will move into near shore waters a little later in the year as the season progresses and salmon move in and more bait fish move in from the open ocean. But there's some halibut around everywhere, especially if you fish deeper. We're using squid tentacles for bait that I've previously caught and frozen up. Most fish really like squid and it tends to stay on the hook well, so it's usually a pretty good option for bait. Well, spring has definitely arrived here in Southeast Alaska, but it's definitely still a little nippy. It's had a good bite. I suspect it was maybe a cod. Let's see if we can get him to hit again. Gotta be all ready now. Get ready. Ooh, there's nibble. Just like broke my rig off. Oh, this is a new line, but it was like it got all frayed on something down there. Weird. Maybe they're sharks, sea monsters. Who knows what's down there? There's something down there on the bottom. It's either codfish or mermaids. Probably codfish. Well, I rigged back up with another lure. Hopefully I can get back over those fish again. Definitely had a hit, and then the braided line actually frayed apart, which is pretty surprising because it's brand new. Basically, I used it once, but maybe it must have been dragging over some sharp rocks. I went with a needlefish dart now, which can usually be pretty good, particularly for cod. They usually seem to really like them. All right, get all ready. Loosen up my shoulders. Ready for a fish. Getting a hit. Halibut are the most famous whitefish from Alaska. But really, there's a variety of good ones, and including ones that I think are better. Fresh, I prefer rockfish over halibut. It's sort of a lighter, flakier fish. Halibut to me is fairly dense. You ever hear that joke about the mermaid, the codfish, and the side of bacon? Neither did I. But I bet it was funny. The breeze is picking up a little bit, blowing us around more. GoPro, start recording. There's a bite. Let's see what this is. Feels maybe decent. It's harder to tell with saltwater fish because often even the nice ones are often even the small ones feel nice. What did I catch here? Peacock! Yeah, it's a nice looking fish. Now I'm just gonna bap this guy on the head. End his suffering as quickly and cleanly as possible. When we're, especially when we're commercial fishing, we really put a big emphasis on bleeding the fish out. It just makes the quality of the meat so much better. And since you're out here catching these fish, you might as well go for the best quality you can. So yeah, you'll want to make an incision somewhere on the inside of this plate. At the top, up here, or most commonly is down on the bottom, or just right across. You can just cut all those arches, and that's, you know, the lungs of the fish, so all the blood of the fish flows through there, and that'll bleed it out quickly. Now instead of a fish and not catch, this can be a catch and cook, which I find those videos are way more popular than the fish without catching. Hey guys, check out this iceberg. Hey guys, we're back in the kitchen. I got warmed up from that cold wind, made myself a cup of coffee, and now we're gonna go ahead and fillet this fish, and I'm gonna show you a way I like to cook up cod or any whitefish really. This recipe will work for halibut, it'll work for hake. It's actually supposed to be for hake. Basically any whitefish. It'd probably even work with like a largemouth bass or pike. I originally got this recipe from this Cocina Basque Tradicional, this Spanish language cookbook, but I sort of modified it to suit my own taste. The dish we're making is going to be a Spanish style Salsa Verde, which is basically a sauce that uses parsley as a base. But I'm also going to be adding roasted pasilla peppers into it to sort of create a more peppery, smoky sauce. We don't just use it for fish, though it is excellent with fish. We've also done like venison meatballs or pork meatballs and then stewed it in the salsa verde. So I'll show you my method of making that sauce, and then we'll add the cod in and we'll have a delicious fresh fish dinner. If you're enjoying this video or think it's interesting or useful, or just feel like being generous, you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button in the lower corner of your screen, or give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Thanks. So this is the Pacific cod, also locally known as true cod, or amongst commercial fishermen as gray cod. It's very similar to the Atlantic cod that most people are familiar with, but it has a tendency to be a bit smaller. You can tell a true cod from some of the other species in the family that are similar, like a hake, by this little barbel, this little whisker that hangs off of their chins. A lot of Alaskans will hold up their nose at cod because it's a common fish, and it's a fish that tends to be used as bait for catching halibut or crab a lot. Because it's common, it's usually pretty cheap. It does have one unfortunate tendency, which is it can be a bit wormy. But all fish have worms. Even tuna fish probably have worms. Certainly halibut do, all whitefish that I know of. And it's just something that you kind of look through the fillet. Some fish will have more worms than others. And if there's just like a couple worms, you can just hold them up to a light and you'll see them, and you can just pull them out with tweezers. They're entirely harmless, unless you're like pulling them out with tweezers and then eating them alive. As long as you cook your fish, it's entirely harmless. You know, it's just extra protein. So we'll start filleting this fish up. These cod have a pretty low yield on them. They're mostly head and belly. So I like to start out by pre-cutting the skin where I'm going to be taking fillets from. So you want to make cuts on both sides of these fins on the back and the bottom. So I like to pre-cut through the skin on both sides of the fish because I think that makes it easier later. Flip them around here. So you can see we're going to be leaving quite a bit of meat on the belly. That tends to be the wormiest part of the fish, but we're not going to waste it. We're actually going to be saving this for halibut bait later. So anything you see here that we're not eating for dinner is going to be used for bait. We'll be using the belly pieces for halibut and the carcass and the head for crab bait. So it's all going to get used. I actually think that their meat is just as delicious as halibut. It tends to be lighter and flakier, which is a profile that I enjoy versus over the denser halibut. Not to say that halibut isn't delicious. I mean, it is. So now we'll slice along the backbone. You can feel the bone. The bones are pretty tough, and you can feel them in there. They're not easy to accidentally cut through. So there's one fillet. And again, this seems wasteful, but we're going to be using it to catch halibut. So that's not really wasteful in my book, because halibut are also delicious and they like to eat bait. So you got to get bait from somewhere. Now we'll just do the same thing on this side. This is definitely the best Alaskan whitefish for fish and chips. Makes a really nice deep fried fillet. I also really enjoy lingcod and rockfish for fish and chips. So now we'll just throw this on the floor. The cat will find it eventually and clean it up. Kidding, I got a bucket down there. I'll just trim this little bit off. And you can see we have 2 nice fillets. Now I'll go ahead and remove the skin. Those also make good bait for either sport fishing for halibut or for crabs. And there we go. We got a bowl of nice white flaky cod fillets. It's going to be tasty. So for this recipe, we're going to be using the cod, parsley, pasilla peppers, garlic, salt, pepper, and olive oil. You can substitute like Anaheim peppers or some other mild green pepper, or you can just leave out the peppers too if you're not really into peppers or you don't have any on hand. I'm not like a traditional Spanish cook, right? So, but I think generally speaking, you don't use the green peppers. It's just something that we like to do. I'll also be adding a little bit of chicken stock into the sauce to sort of enrich it. Or you can use white wine, which is also good. I recommend a dry white wine. So the first step of making this sauce is we're going to be roasting these peppers. I'm going to do it on the barbecue. Toss them on there until the skin starts to char and blister. It'll bubble up, and then we'll take it off. And we can, once it cools a little bit, we can peel off the skin. And that'll make a nice, really good, smoky, rich sauce. Cod are one of the most iconic fish of the world's northern oceans. It conjures up images of crusty old salts back in the sailing days, being ferried out to the Grand Banks and then rowing around in dories, open dories, and hand over fist hauling lines of cod up into their boats. Even today, they're one of the most important fish species in Alaska here. They're caught with hook and line, pots, and trawl. If you happen to be in the store, I highly recommend you look for hook and line or pot cod because it's a much more sustainable practice than bottom trawling, which can damage the seafloor. Cold water corals, which take years and years to grow, and also has just a big problem with bycatch, which is really an issue in Alaska. Some of our king salmon runs have declined, our halibut has declined, and that's partly due to these large industrial trawl fleets. So if you have the opportunity, I recommend buying hook and line fish. I think you'll feel better about yourself, and I think the fish will be a higher quality as well. So we'll just get all this garlic chopped up, and then we'll start making our sauce. Now we're just going to go ahead and peel these peppers because this skin gets kind of tough and unpleasant. You play that game, hot potato, I feel like it should be hot pepper. Now we got those mostly skinned. We're going to go ahead and split them open, take out the stems, which are really, really hot. I don't know why I laughed. It shouldn't be funny that peppers that came off the barbecue are hot. So we added the olive oil in there. We use a fair amount since it's kind of like the base of the sauce. Go ahead and add our garlic. I have 3 cloves in here, but it's a local hardneck garlic. So it's both spicier and the cloves are larger than what you'll find at your local grocery store. So if you're using a standard soft net garlic, I would suggest using more cloves. You don't have to, but I really like garlic, so I suggest putting in a lot. Reduce the heat while the garlic gets lightly toasted. So I didn't chop the parsley up fine because once I add some liquid in here, we're actually going to use a food processor to chop it all up. Give it a spritz of pepper, a spritz of salt, it's really nice to use a dry white wine in the sauce, but I'm just going to be using stock because it's what I have on hand, and it'll still be delicious. Add a little more olive oil. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of stock in here. I'll reserve most of it for use later, but this will just be to add some liquid for the food processor. But I think this dish would be really incredible if you used clam juice or some other seafood stock. Now I'm going to go ahead and use a food processor to turn this kind of mess of peppers and parsley into a really fine green sauce. So I'm going to pour this back in there. I'm going to give it this container a little rinse out with broth so I don't waste any of that deliciousness. So in hindsight, I do recommend slicing the parsley up into small bits because those stems can wrap around the blades of your food processor and cause it to bog down. So take the extra 3 seconds and chop them up. Flavors are good. It's pretty spicy, so I like that. I like spice. So now we'll slice this up into some smaller chunks. It's a nice firm white flaky meat. I like to put a little flour on it because I think it helps thicken the sauce and just locks in some of the moisture and flavor in the fish. So we'll just lightly coat it in a little bit of flour. I'll just do it right on my cutting board because I'm lazy and like to save dishes. Now I'll get this pan heated up. So now this pan is hot, I'm going to add a little more olive oil and turn down the heat. Add a little more garlic. Swish it around in there. It smells good, just olive oil and garlic. It's just an incredible scent. Then we'll add our cod. Kind of sear it in there so that we lock in the flavor. The main part of the cooking is going to be done with the sauce. It'll sort of simmer in there, but this is just to lock in the flavor there. Now we'll go ahead Pour in the sauce. Pour it in over the top. Make sure to get it all in there. Keep it on low for this part. Spread the sauce evenly over the fish. And then I'm going to put a lid on that. And then that'll stay nice and moist as it cooks. So now I'll put a lid on that and sort of let it poach in there, keeping it on low. That's it for the Pacific cod catch and cook. So we cooked it up in a salsa verde. It's going to be delicious. Thanks for watching.